And joining us now is probably one of the strongest conservative voices that has been with Donald Trump from day one, and that's Ann Coulter. And Ann Coulter has a new book out, by the way, that's doing very well about Donald Trump. How are you?
Fantastic. How are you, Sean?
I am good, Miss Coulter. So, who's going to win this election?
I don't know. That's why we hold elections. But as I say in my column today, Hillary's advantage is the media, Trump's advantage are the issues. And I'm really glad that came out last night. I must say, I've been critical in the past. Chris Wallace was, I had a few nitpicking complaints, but Chris Wallace was really terrific last night by keeping this debate, by and large, on the issues. I mean, it's amazing that in an election that has been rocketed by a single issue, immigration, we have had two 90-minute debates until last night and not one question on immigration. We finally got that one question last night. I could have done without the question on this nonsense about, women coming forward 3 weeks before an election. Oh, I remember now. He groped me. The New York Times did a massive investigation back in May of Donald Trump's treatment of women. Remember that one? They come up empty-handed, but now suddenly, anyway, I'm spending too much time talking about it now. Wallace was fantastic by talking about issues. I loved the first question on the Supreme Court, and I would like to note that Hillary Clinton's answer about the Supreme Court did not use the words Constitution or interpretation. No, she sees the Supreme Court, as liberals do, as this governing body that will enforce the Dionysian lifestyle of Hillary and Bill and Hillary Clinton. It's all about things that aren't in the Constitution. They will force this on the American people. She actually referred to the Supreme Court as being a representative body. No, it very much is not, as Justice Scalia hilariously pointed out in a recent dissent, I believe it was. I forget the details, but it was, okay, we have, 3 Jews, 4 Catholics, maybe it's 5 Catholics. We are all from the Northeast. We all went to, a total of 3 schools. This is anything but a representative body, and that doesn't matter because it's not supposed to be a representative body. They are lawyers who are supposed to be interpreting the Constitution. It doesn't matter if all 9 of them are Hindus. If we're going to have this grand group of philosopher kings deciding issues for us, then maybe it should be representative. Just shut it down. Trump was fantastic, and I'm so glad he reminded viewers that it will be open season, not only on the Second Amendment, but on the unborn. If Hillary is elected, the next president appoints a 5th Supreme Court justice, and the left is just itching to overturn Heller. That's going to be it.
Well, and I was actually pretty impressed that Trump had so many details about Heller in his head. Look, he's been in politics 18 months. These are issues you and I cover ad nauseum every day. It's what we do, and I don't think the average person understands how profound this issue of the court alone is going to be in terms of impacting the country.
Yes, that was a very important question. I also wanted to praise Chris Wallace when he got to immigration. It has been driving me crazy that I have a whole chapter in my book, In Trump We Trust, because, people go on TV and they have to say something, but apparently they don't know anything. So one of the catchphrases everyone has been using about Trump, basically since the moment he announced, is he won't give us policy specifics. There are no policy specifics. I have a whole chapter just quoting him saying that, interspersed with the precise date on which he gave a major policy speech or released a major policy paper, when in fact he's given us specifics on everything. The only thing we don't know is the name of the company that's going to supply the rebar for the wall. But Hillary has not been asked what are the specifics on what she's going to do on immigration. She says she's going to grant amnesty to all the illegal aliens here. Well, they've been claiming for a decade now there are 11 million illegal aliens. We know it's at least 30 million, probably more like 40, 50 million. Could we get her to answer, as you're granting all these amnesties, if you get up to 40 million, if you get to 41 million, 42, is there any point at which you will say, okay, that's enough? Also, how many crimes can they have committed? Under Rubio's amnesty bill, I believe you got 3 misdemeanors. She says the only ones she won't amnesty are the violent criminals. Well, the illegal alien who had been deported several times before, and murdered Kate Steinle. He wasn't convicted of any violent felonies until he killed Kate Steinle. Could we get some details on what her plans are for the border? And that is what Chris Wallace asked. He said, what is your plan for securing the border? And it was the same nonsense I describe in my book, In Trump We Trust. Anyone who says, I will secure the border, personnel, boots on the ground, that is all code for open borders, because what are the troops going to do? What, you're going to have technology and drones? So what, so we can watch them run across the border? Are the troops going to shoot the illegals? How about a wall that just sits there day and night, doesn't need to break for sleep or eat, doesn't need unemployment insurance, a continuing salary? How about a nice wall?
Let me ask you, the big liberal media spin, which is kind of ironic in light of all the WikiLeaks dumps that prove what I have said for many, many years, that journalism is dead and the press is an extension of Hillary Clinton and her campaign. But I mean, literally, they cannot say it enough. This was outrageous that Donald Trump said, I'll keep you in surprise about accepting the election outcome. Now, this comes on the heels of this very week, Project Veritas releasing videos talking about direct funding coming from Hillary Clinton and the DNC and being funneled into dark arts operatives that have been fomenting violence all throughout this political cycle. But more importantly, as it relates to this question, they're also describing in all its detail a Clinton DNC financed effort at massive voter fraud.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people forget that you and I, this is not our first rodeo. You do remember 2000. You do remember Hillary in 2002 saying Bush was selected, not elected. You do remember John Kerry suggesting the same thing after losing in 2004.
Not only that, there was a protest led by Barbara Boxer in the Senate in 2004. This isn't 2000. No, I gotta say, this is, and he was generally good, but, certainly better than the other moderators, but, I do have a complaint with Chris Wallace in asking Donald Trump if he'll accept the results of the election, but not Hillary Clinton. No, my entire life has consisted of Democrats refusing to accept the results of an election. Not only 2000, not only 2004 with their crazy conspiracy theory about the Diebold machines in Ohio, Barbara, but there was a protest in Congress to prevent the certifying of George Bush beating John Kerry. There was also in 1985, Republican won a congressional race in Indiana. That was back 85 before the Gingrich Revolution. House was very, very Democratic. They refused to seat the Republican, a guy named McIntyre, who had beaten the incumbent, McCloskey. They refused to seat him, demanded that the ballots be sent to the House. They recounted them, and guess what the Democrats found when they recounted? Oh, the Democrat won. They not only refused to accept the result of an election, they then stole it. Oh, and how about two more elections they didn't accept? How about the result of a popular initiative in California of Californians saying, no, actually, if you ran across the border and are living here illegally, I don't want to go to work every day to provide you with welfare. That, not surprisingly, passed overwhelmingly. The Democrats refused to accept the results of that election, and they ran to a court. Just recently, California rejected the idea of homosexual marriage. What did Democrats do? Refused to accept the results of an election, ran to the court. This is an example of something I described many years ago in my book, Slander. Democrats always advance as if under threat of attack. Whatever they accuse you of is what they're planning on doing or what they are doing. And here, through our entire lives, only one party has repeatedly refused to accept the results of an election. That is the Democrats, but the Democrat last night wasn't asked, will you accept the results of the election? I would also add, I had a horrible deja vu moment, because I remember discussing it with you on your TV show. It was Donald Trump in the primaries who was browbeaten into saying he will support whomever the eventual Republican nominee is. And I asked you at the time on television, well, could you ask the other candidates that? Well, okay, they all raised their hands. And he took the pledge, and look at what they're doing now. They are betraying that pledge. So, I think.
Well, they're betraying the pledge, and they lied.
Yes.
Let me ask you this question, because here we are, 19 days out of the election. I don't think the public has fully and completely absorbed the magnitude of the Clinton campaign, the DNC financing and fomenting violence at rallies and pushing a massive voter fraud effort. They certainly haven't digested last night's debate, although the media is spinning frenetically in terms of helping Hillary. But here's my question. If you look at the polls, what is your take on the polls? Now, I generally take it this way. I think you've got to believe, knock out the high, knock out the low, look at the average, and you're probably somewhere in there. But with so many balls up in the air in terms of, I don't think the public has absorbed Veritas, the Veritas videos, Project Veritas. I don't think they've absorbed WikiLeaks. They certainly haven't absorbed the debate last night. So there are way too many balls in the air. We know the media is an extension of the Hillary Clinton campaign, and I don't think we're going to get anything that resembles an accurate poll number until probably, 3 days before the election.
I totally agree with you. I'd forget the polls. And I don't want to sound like a nut. I would not say this in a normal election year. Usually an average of the polls genuinely accurately tells you about where we are. Though I must say they were wrong in 2012. They had a dead even tie, which is why I don't like making election predictions. The night before I said if it's a tie, I think that goes to the challenger. I was wrong about that. But generally the polls are pretty accurate. But as you say, I've never seen anything like this. As you know, Sean, I've written extensively about the McCarthy era, about Goldwater era. Yeah. There has never been an all-out attack on a candidate like this. This puts what they did to Sarah Palin in the dust. And I'm sorry with the media behaving that way. I'm just say, ignore the polls. Just go out and vote. Just go out and vote. I do not believe this. There are a lot of ways that you can't. And I'm not saying he's going to win. I'm just saying, I don't know. We'll know.
I don't know. Listen, I'm saying I don't know. I don't have a read or a pulse on this at all, and I don't think anybody else does either, is my take. But I do take the polls seriously in terms of averages and aggregate. But, all right, Ann Coulter, in Trump We Trust, a brand new book. Thank you for being with us.